All right, so what the heck is going on with this cymbal? Why is it in my shop? What are we gonna do to this thing? That's the topic of today's video. Let's dive in now. So here at Reverie, we modify cymbals all the time. We get guys and gals sending us their instruments if they feel like the cymbal's a bit too heavy or if it's a little bit too bright. And we do hand hammering, we lathe, we add patinas, we add rivets, we do all kinds of stuff to manipulate the sound of pre-made cymbals. This is actually how I became a cymbalsmith, was I started by modifying. I had a hammer, I had a little barbell that I flipped up on its end, and I just started going to town on a cymbal that I owned to see how it would change. And I got hooked immediately, and for years all I did was modifications before I ever made an original cymbal, which what we do now mostly is make cymbals from scratch by hand. But we still do this modification process. I've got a couple apprentices, we all collaborate, and we call them modifications by Reverie. So we had someone reach out recently about their cymbal that had gotten damaged, and they were just wondering, is it possible for us to salvage it? They initially wanted to send it to us to shave down and make into a nice thin, jazzy flat ride that was crashable, and this is what happened to it. And so they reached out and said, hey, is it possible still? And we said, why not? Let's give it a shot. So as you can see, this cymbal is wildly out of whack. It's got kind of a U shape. It's bent in different ways. Sounds terrible. I feel like we can salvage it. We're going to try to turn this thing back into a usable flat. Then we're going to be taking the weight down and trying to get it into a nice crashable place. This will be a challenge. This will be fun though. Here's how it sounds. Ugh. I'm gonna try to flip this inside out, and then I'm gonna put it on my backing here, use the force to try to flatten out the shape. That's step one for this. Flipping a cymbal inside out is not recommended unless you know what you're doing. This is something with older metal can cause it to crack, so it's always a little bit of a risk, but I think it's gonna be necessary with this piece just to start the process. So that was fairly easy, and that gives me a much more uniform surface. It actually looks flat when I invert it now. There's an area where it's starting to rise up in the middle, so the pressure on top here is going to hopefully get it to flatten out, so I flip it back the right way and it won't be so tacoed. Much less tacoed, still a little bit warped. I have an arch kind of here and here with the highest points. So what I can do is come against that arch and I can bend. That is a way to kind of help tease it back into shape. And we have a pretty good shape now. So at this point we go to the hammer station, do some hammering to iron out the shape. Then we can do lathing, more hammering, and now we're able to work it into a usable flat ride. All right, so just that burnishing, and it now sounds much more like a traditional flat. It actually probably sounds pretty close to what it did sound like before it got all messed up. It actually sounds pretty good in this state here, but we've got to correct it further because it's not perfect. It needs to lay a little bit more flat. Then we can actually go about doing the modification, which is to get it thinner, much more crashable, and more nuanced and complex. that bit of hammering has gotten the shape mostly there. I'm not trying to get it absolutely perfect because I'm going to be taking it to the lathe and doing some weight removal. That will also help correct and flatten that weird shape. This is the sound we got. Super dry and choked because of the hammering. If I just left this, did nothing else to it, in 12 hours it's going to have a lot more shimmer and openness. But the customer wants this shaved thinner, much more crashable, so we'll go right now to the lathe. So with it being a 20-inch flat, it weighs 2,200, kind of upper 2,200 gram range. I'm really aiming to get this down closer to 2,000 grams. The lathing will help flatten it. There might be a need for additional hammering, but first up is cutting material. All right, so that little bit of lathing has taken it down to 2,092 grams, a little bit above the target that I have in mind. And so I want to let it rest because it's very, very dry, very choked. And the next time you see this cymbal, it will be finished. And you can let me know if I did a good job salvaging this crazy mod. All right, we've made it to the end of the modification process. After the last footage you saw, I took it down an additional 100, 200 grams. The final weight on this flat ride is 1,880 grams, which is a beautiful weight for a 20-inch flat ride. It allows for just enough crashability to give you that option when you're playing it, but you don't sacrifice the stick definition. So when I play this cymbal, you know, sitting right here, we've got the one mic on top of the camera, and I use two different stick tips to get different tones out of it. This is the sound we got. In front of it, it's very mellow. You know, I can hit the crash and it's not really hurting my ears, but the crash is substantial. It's there as a musical accent. In the gig, it would work really well for a quick accent that hits and gets out of the way fast, and it just makes this instrument pretty dynamic. Let's hop over to the drum kit and you'll hear it with the nice studio mics. I would love to know what you think of this cymbal. Drop a comment below, hit the like and the subscribe and the bell if you want notifications, and keep an eye out for the next video. I'm Timothy Roberts. Thanks for watching.